Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again on Itamar. It's Friday. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Thursday. Today is Thursday. It feels like Friday because we are going into the second part of our holiday. I mean, we know that the Passover holiday has the opening, the Seder night. We're all sitting down there and enjoying ourselves and reading all about the Passover and the Haggadah. And then we have our Chol HaMoed, the days, the intermediate days, what do you want to call them? The in-between days. And then we have the seventh day of Passover, which is the special great day of the splitting of the Red Sea, which is taking place tonight, Thursday night. Here, it's a great day back on Thursday. And then we go right into Shabbat. So we have a beautiful Shabbat. Shabbat really, Passover is over. You know, and outside of Israel, they celebrate an extra day just because of being in exile, the punishment of being in exile. But, wow, the winds are so strong today, so I do hope my voice will carry, and I know I'm going to have to scream a little bit because it's a bit chilly out here, and although I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt, it's cold, but gorgeous. Anyway, what do we want to talk about on our seventh day of the Passover coming up? What are we going to talk about today? In reality, if we think about it, the entire holiday of Passover is based on one of the greatest happenings, or the greatest happening of a nation, of God, God's chosen people. When God really took us out of Egypt, coming out of Egypt, it's like a birth. It's like a delivery. God is delivering His people from that, from the turmoil, from the hands of slavery, which was again the suffering that the people of Israel experienced during those 210 years of bondage. You know, it's hard to describe. In modern times, we've spoken about this in the past in our lessons, talking about slavery in modern times, but today our focus will not be, again, the story of coming out of Egypt. That's, again, we've been there, we've been reading all about it throughout the holiday, which is, of course, it's never ending, and it's such a fundamental principle of the faith of our people, to understand that God took us out and God is with us. And the nation of Israel was born in Egypt, which is very interesting, right? Our destiny is to be in the land of Israel. It was returned to the land. But in reality, we were born outside the land of Israel as far as a nation. The beginnings of our people began, of course, with Abraham entering the land of Israel and building his family, and with Jacob and his children. But that was on an individual scale. On a national scale, it's amazing that we were born as a nation outside the land, in this Egyptian womb, you could say. And God took us out and brought us back to the land of Israel, which is the whole goal, of to return to our source, to where Abraham was sent back in Genesis, the beginning of Genesis, when God says in Genesis 12, God says to Abraham, Lech lecha u'me'artzecha u'moladecha u'beit, go from your land to your birthplace, to your father's house, el ha'aretz asher areka, to the land I will show you. And he comes, of course, not only to the land of Israel, but he comes to the place of Itamar, the first place he puts his foot upon in the land of Israel. So really, coming out of Egypt and bringing us back, everything is to return here to the land of Israel. And we on Itamar have that privilege of being in that first place where Abraham treaded upon when he entered the land. And later on, Joshua, we've spoken about this, of course, many, many times. So today, you know, we're celebrating Passover, and we always think about that coming out of Egypt and the return to the land of Israel, of course. But there's something that comes up all the time, and it's not only in the story of Passover, but it's really, well, I would say it's probably one of the greatest themes of the story of Passover, is the story of miracles. Yes, miracles. Wonder of wonders, miracles of miracles. It's a song like that somewhere. But anyway, miracles. What is that all about? What is a miracle in reality? And, you know, of course, if we look around us, as a matter of fact, Nachmanides and Rabbi Yehuda Halevi from the Kuzari talks about that in reality everything's a miracle. And we know that. We know that we get up in the morning and we breathe fresh air. And we look around us and we see the beauty of nature. And the fact that we're sitting here on this planet Earth and that our star, this is the star, right? Earth is a planet. In Hebrew we call it a kochav lechet, the moving stars. It has an orbit and it orbits around the sun. And it's a miracle that our orbit is exactly the way it is, because if it was a little bit closer to the sun, we would burn up to smithereens. And if it was a little further away, we would freeze like icicles, and it would be hundreds of degrees colder than the coldest place on Earth. So the miracle of just us here, the human beings, that we're in the cosmos, this huge, vast, expanding universe, and here we are, little planet Earth, and we have all the amazing conditions of survival, and that we live here is a miracle in itself. That's a miracle, right? So every second, if we just could contemplate the amazing facets of nature and how God created this world, and the way things continue and the wind blows, all these things are miraculous miracles of every second of our lives. So what is a miracle then? And what when we talk about Passover, we talk about stories. Enjoy that wind. We talk about the plagues. And we're reaching a height. We're going to read about the splitting of the Red Sea into two. What are these miracles all about? Why are they different than the fact that our planet is orbiting the sun and we're surviving? Or are they different? Are they really not? And in reality, we must divide miracles really into two parts. We can say miracles. Everything, of course, is a miracle. That's the approach that I feel is the greatest approach. Because when a person really contemplates and meditates on this amazing world that God created, everything is a miracle. And he must never forget that. And it brings about our appreciation, of course, to the creator of the universe. So if that is the case, what makes this Passover story stand out with the plagues and again the splitting of the sea and all these other miracles that took place? And the answer is, as I began to say, there are really two categories of miracles. There are miracles that are, again, that are sort of part of nature, and you have to contemplate more to see them. And there are miracles that stand out, that you have to be blind, deaf, and dumb not to see that there is divine reality in front of you happening at that moment. As a person who's spiritually sensitive could see every moment, of course, that God is all over the place. But the miracles that are the second type, that are for everyone, for the blind people to wake up and realize, those miracles come about, interestingly, and I'm going to say something very profound here, which bases itself on the Netziv of Volozhin, one of the great rabbis of Volozhin. And he talks about what is greater, the wind blowing, is that miracle of the wind blowing, or the splitting of the Red Sea? What is great? What kind of miracles are great? And he gives an example. He talks about the nation of Israel. When we were in the desert, and of course when we first began coming out of Egypt, God had to change, of course. It seems like there were changes in nature, right? All the plagues, the 10 plagues that took place, and the splitting of the sea. Were those miracles that took place then, and throughout the desert, all things that took place, were they greater than the situation of entering the land of Israel, where miracles seem to really die down? And again, I mentioned before, the miracles on the outside, right? The miracles that are very clear to everybody, those seem to die down. And the Volozhin, the Netziv of Volozhin, Rav Kook, follows the same pattern. And he says, in reality, this is a weakness when we have to look at miracles that are so powerful to make everyone, convince everyone of the existence of God. In reality, if we are spiritually sensitive and strong enough, we will begin to see God in everything. And the land of Israel is all about that, showing us how God is to be found through the beauty of his nation living in the land of Israel and dealing and coping with the battle and building a country of spirituality. And that is really the greatest miracle of all. Because if we find God and build a country which runs on natural laws, but of course behind the scenes we're all aware that God is here. That's the greatest level of, we're being spoiled. And God is bringing about miracles. We're very passive. We wait around for things to be done for us. That is a level of sort of being in diapers. It's before we reach a level of being independent. It's like children. Growing up, the parents have to take care of every one of their needs. When they're little children, they even have to obviously be fed everything, and they can't completely lack of independence. And as they get older, their independence grows. But when you reach maturity, a mature individual is a person who's independent. A person who can stand on his own 2 feet, and he has a mind of his own. And that's really what God wants for the nation of Israel. This whole happening of going through Egypt, it's an amazing story. It was an amazing story, the birth. But it was a birth, which means we were born into and the reason all these miracles took place, these outward miracles, were for the fact that we were just growing. We were infants, toddlers. When we entered the land of Israel, God was opening up a new realm for Israel. And that was to be able to build the land, to work the land, to build a temple, divine service. And through all these actions that we, as a nation, will bring about in the land, the miracle world will be found within our actions. And realizing how everything is really a miracle of reality. The story of Passover, of course, contains within it a great message for all of mankind. It was Paro, evil King Paro. And he says, who is God that I should listen to him for? Think about it. When Moses comes over to Pharaoh and says, let my people go, Paro says, why should I listen to him for? Now why? He was a great leader of an empire, this Paro. And the slaves that he was holding was his entire Egyptian economy. And for him to let go and just throw the Jews out of his country would destroy his economy. It would destroy basically Egypt. The culture of Egypt, everything about Egypt was a slave mentality of running a slave world. And the concept of the miracles, it was a really necessity, not only for the people of Israel, of course, to show faith. It was a nation of slaves. At that point, they were born, they needed this, obviously, this kind of special treatment. But of course, it was for the nations of the world to wake up to reality, for this great empire of Egypt, to realize there's a God in the world. And sometimes God brings about miracles and he has to change nature because of the fact that people don't see him clear enough and they're looking for him. And the whole process of coming out of Egypt and dealing again with the situation of slavery and getting out of there, of course, and all the plagues is all about teaching a lesson to the nations, realizing that there's a God in the universe. And we see, if you go actually and follow, throughout the 10 plagues, you will see a pattern of how God is stressing this fact that he's revealing himself. I brought down a few of these verses. This is brought down in a beautiful commentary of the Klei Akal, which I brought down a few times. We're not going to go through the whole Klei Akal. I just want to show a few verses. We see in Exodus verse 7. It says, Exodus chapter 7, verse 17. Kol amar Hashem, thus says God, Bizot teida ki ani Hashem. With this you will know that I am God. Hine anochi makeh b'mateh. I will hit with the staff. Asher biyadi al hamayim asher bi'or v'nefchu l'dam. Right? She's God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, With this they will know that I am God when you hit the staff on the water and turns to blood. So here we see the words, with this, Teidah ki ani Hashem, means the fact that I am God will become clear through this act. So the idea of a miracle is to know, to let the world know there's a God in the world. If we go to verse number, Exodus chapter 8, verse 18. What does it say? It says, "V'leiti biyomo et eretz Goshen asher ami omed alea." I will make a distinction between the land of Goshen where my people are at. Levilti hayot sham arov. There will not be these wild animals. When God brought the plague of the wild animals, the beasts, He separated between Israel, of course, like He did to the other plagues in the nations, the Egyptian nation. And then it says, "Leman te'edah ki ani Hashem b'kerev haaretz." For I want you to know that there's a God b'kerev haaretz within the land. Now here's a little change. In the beginning it said that you should know there's a God in the world, which means that's one concept. Another concept is that God comes down to the world. You'll know there's a God within the kerev haaretz. This is what the Kli Yakar brings down in the name of the Abarbanel, that there are different approaches how people understand God. Some people completely don't believe. Others believe God is completely detached from the world. And here we see that God, through bringing about these miracles, is not only trying to show that He exists, but showing that He's involved on the ground over here with us. And here He's separating between Israel and Egypt. And the third verse is brought down in Exodus 9, verse 14. And it says, "Ki בפעם הזאת אני שולח את כל מגפותיי אל לבך ובעבדיך ועמך." God said, this time I will send all my plagues. He's going to open up His entire arsenal. ובעבור תדע כי אין כמוני בכל הארץ. To know that there is no one else like me in all the land, which means not only that God shows His existence, He's involved in earth, but there's no one like God. And don't forget, the Egyptians were entrenched in idol worship. And they, of course, began to believe there was something out there. They saw the miracles of God, but they thought that, again, they still gave power to other gods. But the point is, there's only one God. There's no one else. No one else but God Himself. And this was the lesson of the miracles that came about through all these miracles and the plagues, was to teach, the Egyptian world, the empire at that time, which was the world, to teach them that God exists. And this, of course, the nation of Israel was pampered and taken good care of in order to slowly introduce him to his, again, to the understanding of faith, and to enter the land of Israel where they'll be at another level of faith completely. So if we summarize the importance of miracles, we spoke about two kinds of miracles. There are miracles that are outright miracles, and those are to make people wake up, as a wake-up calls, but they're a weaker side. Because in reality, we know that we're supposed to reach a level where we see a miracle in everything, like it opened up. And the splitting of the Red Sea, which we're going to celebrate the Passover, which is an amazing event, the sea splitting. And there's nothing, of course, these days are so special in our faith, and God placed the holiday of Passover, this remembering coming out of Egypt, and all our things we do, we always remember Egypt. That's how important it is. But we have to realize that there's another stage, which will eventually take hold of the entire universe. And that's the stage of understanding that God is with everything. And that stage is represented in the end of days, in Messiah times. When in the end of days, the prophet talks about the time is going to come when we are going to remember, not focus upon the story of coming out of Egypt, but it's talking about God returning His people to the land, returning, which is again the third millennium, where we build our temple, third temple, and return to the land. This great situation will replace in focus everything else that preceded it. But of course, we can never reach this final stage without always knowing where we came from, and always remembering, of course, the great story of our birth as a nation, of coming out of Egypt, and the miracles that took place, but always to know that we are heading for greater times, even for a new level that we haven't seen before, which we are beginning now to experience, the life of Israel in the land of Israel. Have a wonderful Chag Sameach, a beautiful Passover. It's an amazing holiday. Let's enjoy it. And let's enjoy Shabbat. I will come in right after that. And we will all meet, God willing, next week. Have Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday and a great Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Besorot Tovot, Yeshurot v'Nechama.